Hello and welcome to this week's Friday Tech Roundup. Yes, coronavirus has made it on today's agenda, but we assure you all health updates have been left with the more official news outlets. Instead, we're going to be looking at the rise of remote working over the last couple of weeks and what that's meant for the industry, as well as looking at things such as Google Cloud's recent win with Lloyds Banking Group and Intel as they hit the news earlier this week as well. All that and more to come in this week's Friday Tech Roundup. Let's go. Number one, COVID-19 and the impact it's been having on the IT industry. Now, for many, remote working has been on the agenda for a few years, but actually the concept of rolling that out to an entire organization can be incredibly intimidating when you consider the practicality, the costs, the ability to scale, and also the infrastructure in place to make sure that actually you can continue business as usual and it not impact bottom lines, profit, and also productivity within teams. Unfortunately, obviously, COVID-19 has happened, but what it has presented is an interesting use case for remote working platforms such as Google, Microsoft, Teams, and Zoom, all of which have experienced an uplift since COVID-19 hit the scene. Microsoft, for instance, experienced a 500% uplift in its Teams calls, meetings, and conferences since January 31st within China. All of the software vendors just mentioned were actually encouraged to help give people free access to some of the software available. And in doing so, they've now encouraged people to actually onboard a remote working solution, even if only for a small period of time. But actually, Slack's always done that. They've always offered their platform for free. So they've gone one step further and they're now educating people in how they can be getting the best use out of these platforms. What's really interesting about it is, again, people have been talking about this future of work for a little while now. And so whilst these pilot programs are in place, will people continue them post-COVID-19, or will they just revert back to old ways of working? I guess only time will tell. Number two, whilst we're on the topic of COVID-19, it is worth mentioning that resellers are suffering from potentially months of delay in getting their orders, which are currently stuck in containers at port. Now, this shouldn't come as a surprise. Actually, many businesses use China as part of their supply line at any various points. And so when it comes to a whole country shutting down to help stop a health crisis, this will obviously have a knock-on effect. So far, it's affecting things such as servers, laptops, even down to the simple cabling that we need to run IT infrastructure. For those on the cloud, I mean, you're doing okay, but actually many people rely on hardware still to be able to get the storage they need for their businesses and to make sure that business as usual can take place. So we really are holding our fingers, crossing our fingers for these resellers who are now having to wait months for their goods and hope that perhaps these delays can speed up a little bit. But considering how many people rely on China, we just don't know. Number three, Intel have unfortunately made the news after an unfixable flaw was found within its chipsets, opening up encrypted data to hackers. One of the problems here is that this completely affects Intel chipsets from the past 5 years, and unless you're prepared to fork out on a new laptop, there's actually nothing we as a consumer can do. But what makes matters worse is that because it sits at the hardware level within the read-only memory, if an attack was attempted, it would go completely undetected. Now, I am ever the optimist, but it doesn't seem like there is a silver lining for Intel at this particular moment in time. Let's hope things change. Number four, on to slightly happier news. Google Cloud has just secured a 5-year deal with Lloyds Banking Group as part of their UK's bank's commitment to spend £3 billion on digital transformation projects. Now, Lloyds will be looking to deploy a number of Google Cloud services across the years to help them with their own digital transformation, but also to transform the customer experience for their 26 million users. We will be keeping a close eye on this relationship as it develops. Number five, Synergy Research announced that software as a service closed 2019 as a $101 billion market. Now, what's interesting about this is actually there's been very little shake-up amongst its top performers over the last year. For instance, Microsoft, who has been leading for the front for a while, closed Q4 with just a 17% market share. So what's really interesting about this is actually this cloud-based application market is really diverse and wide open for disruption. So we will be keeping an eye on it over the next couple of years to see what happens. And that's it. That's all we have time for today. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of the Friday Tech Roundup. As promised, we kept all health updates off the camera, and we really hope that perhaps the tech updates that we did supply have taken your mind off COVID-19, even for just a little bit. As always, we wish you a very, very happy weekend, and we've dropped all links of everything we've spoken about today below, should you want to check anything out further. And that's it. That's all I've got left to say. Have a fantastic weekend, and we'll catch up with you again next week. Take care.